Okay, welcome back. For these questions, it says find all the characteristics of the following equation. So of this, right? So what that means, characteristics, is really that if I graphed this thing and wanted to sketch it out, what are the valuable points? What are the points that are going to allow me to sketch this thing? Well, the x-intercepts are going to help me. So maybe there was like one x-intercept there and maybe one there that I find. The other thing that would help me would be the y-intercept. So if I knew there was a y-intercept, there, maybe just wait. So if I add my line, x-intercept there, x-intercept there, and I could also know my y-intercept, maybe it was like right there. And then the last one that's going to be valuable is our vertex, so that point right there. That'd be enough information that I'd be able to connect the dots and sketch my graph out. It does say algebraically, so you guys could cheat and throw it into your calculator and find those things. But what we're doing now is we want to be able to figure these things out without a calculator. So what we want to do, I'll just kind of write down what we want to start looking for. First one to be y-intercept. So if I want to find the y-intercept, it's already in a great form because remember the last number when it's in standard form, that is the y-intercept. So the y-intercept here is just going to be equal to 10. So 1 down, we've got that dot figured out. Now let's figure out these two dots, the x-intercepts, because those are going to help us find our vertex anyway. So let's find the x-intercepts first. So the x-intercepts, they're not that easy to find when it's in this form. So what we want to do is put it into a different form. We need to factor this. So to factor this, we're gonna have to do our factoring a trinomial. But right now I've got this negative sign out front of the x. That's kind of a problem because it can't really do my normal. We're gonna factor this by going, that one, x and x. That negative sign kind of throws a kink into things because I'd have to have a negative in there and not one there, and it just messes everything up. What I'm going to do to make things easier right off the bat is just factor out a negative out of every one of these things. So I'm taking really a common factor of -1 out of every one of these terms. So when I do that, if I factor out a -1, so I say -1, I start a bracket, and then write what I have left. So all that's really going to happen is all the signs are going to flip. So now instead of -x, I'm going to have x squared, I'm going to have just positive x squared. Instead of -3x, I'm going to have positive 3x. Instead of positive 10, that now flips and now I have -10. So I just factor the -1. Now I can do my thing. So now I can keep the -1 out front. But I'm going to rewrite this as 2 factors. So it's going to put it into factored form. What I'm looking for is a number that multiplies to 10, adds, or -10, adds to 3. So I'm going to write down numbers that multiply to to 10. So I'm going to write down, well, 2 and 5 do, but actually, yeah, that works out pretty good. And 7 and 3, no, 7 and 3 don't. So just 2 and 5 and 10 and 1. But 10 and 1, there's no way I'm going to go from 10 and 1 to add to 3, right? 10 plus 1 is 11, 10 minus 1 is 9. So that's not going to work. The numbers I'm looking for are 2 and 5. So I'm going to have an x there and an x there because that's just what we always do. And then 2 and 5. And remember, it doesn't matter about which one's which. That could have been 5, that could have been 2. And then last thing we need to do is just figure out which one of these things is negative and which one's positive. So if I'm looking at this, I'm going to say, well, it needs to, so -10. So since it's negative, 1's going to be negative and 1's going to be positive. And I got to figure out which one. So they add to positive 3. So the bigger of these two must be the positive one. So positive minus. So now if I check this, I go, okay, -2 and positive 5. Yeah, that they multiply to -10 because they're two different symbols. And then positive 5 minus 2. That gives me my positive 3. So that's my form, right? So now it's in factored form. Now I can just look at this and say the x-intercept here is going to be x is equal to 2. I'm really saying what makes what I'm really doing here is saying I'm making f of x, instead of f of x, I'm making it equal to 0, right? I'm making y equal to 0. Because y, when y is 0, that's my intercept. So this is 0. So I'm saying, what would make this equal to 0? Well, it would have to be 2, right? This part, to make that equal to 0, that would have to be x is equal to -5. So our x-intercepts happen at 2 and -5. So x-intercepts 2 and -5. Okay, so we are almost done for finding our characteristics. Last thing we need to do, though, is figure out where our vertex is. So remember the vertex we said was just x is going to be equal to r plus s divided by 2. So that's going to be the x value of our vertex. So if we're looking for, I'm just going to write v, I'm looking for that number and that number. So that's our vertex we're looking for. So the x value here is going to just be r plus s divided by 2. So remember, r and s is just that number and that number. Or probably that number and that number. So this one's, yeah. So let's put that into the formula. So I'm just going to write beside here, instead of r, I'm going to put 2 plus -5 over 2. Well, I'm just going to rewrite this. 2 plus -5, that's the same thing as 2 minus 5. So 2 minus 5 over 2, which is the same thing as -3 over 2, which is also the same as -1.5. Okay, so that's the x value. That's right here, right? -1.5. You could also put in there -3 over 2, either way you want to do it. And then last thing you need to do is our original equation. That's the x value, right? So if I put that into my function up here, then it's going to pop out a y value for me. Remember, f of x is just another way of writing y, as far as we're concerned. So if I do that, if I say y is equal to, the original equation was -x squared minus 3x plus 10, I'm going to put a -1.5 everywhere that there's an x. When you do that, you get 12.25. So that is our y value here. So 12.25. That's our vertex at the top here. And it looks like I've drawn this a little bit wrong. What our vertex should actually be, here, I'll do the whole thing. So according to this, if we graph this thing, I've got a y-intercept at 10. So maybe that's like up here. I've got x-intercepts at 2 and -5. So -5 is farther, and then like 2. And vertex up around there. So the top here is at -1.5 this way, so -1.5, and is up 12.25. That's how high it goes. So that's my vertex right at the top. And I just wrote v, comma, yeah. Okay, so that's how you do those questions. Can I get you guys to go ahead and do the following questions there? So go ahead and do those ones. I'm going to wait and do the revenue questions in a different video, or maybe in class. So I'll end that one there.